Tonight, Ontario's largest school board is asking the province to extend the mask mandate in classrooms.
The thought was, it's just a little too fast and too much all at once.
The TDSB among several school boards asking the province for more time when it comes to lifting the masking requirement that's set to end after March break. But the Premier is not budging. Plus,
I'm really happy seeing people like traveling again, like visiting their families or going for a trip.
tens of thousands of travelers are passing through Pearson today ahead of March break, the busiest the airport has been since the start of the pandemic 2 years ago. And a concert for Ukraine featuring members of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. The city's Lithuanian community organizing the event tonight to raise money for the people of Ukraine. Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. Students and staff in Ontario schools will no longer be required to wear masks after March break. Now, several school boards, though, want to extend that mandate. That includes the public school boards in Toronto and Hamilton. But as Lisa Shing reports, there is some confusion as to whether that is allowed and also how to go about it.
In the schoolyard today, there are mixed opinions from Toronto parents on whether they support their school board keeping its mask mandate in place until a few weeks after March break.
I have a daughter. It should be stay on longer, a little bit longer.
The numbers seem to be going down, and they seem to be okay with whether they take it off or leave it on.
Amidst all this, Hamilton's public board voted to continue the mask mandate until April 15th. Toronto's Catholic board sent a letter to the province asking for 2 more weeks after March break. The Toronto Public Board is doing the same.
I think the thought was, it's just a little too fast and too much all at once.
Several children's hospitals in the province also preferred this. They wanted to wait a little longer to assess the effects of the latest reopening measures.
So anyone who wants to wear a mask, I encourage you to wear a mask.
Today, the Premier stood behind Dr. Kieran Moore's decision to shift from a mandate to a mask recommendation.
Let me be very clear to the school boards, they aren't medical experts. The Chief Medical Officer is the expert. Follow the direction of the Chief Medical Officer, plain and simple.
Now, there's some confusion around how the school boards can get that extension. The Ministry of Health tells me the school boards can work with their local public health units in consultation with the Chief Medical Officer of Health. But both Toronto and Hamilton public health units tell me the school boards need to work directly with the province. So one thing is clear in all of this, the government clearly prefers everyone stick to its plan and lift the mandate in just over a week. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Tens of thousands of travelers made their way through Pearson Airport today, getting an early start on their March break getaways. Now, this is the first March break since 2019 that there hasn't been an advisory against non-essential travel. Our Ali Chiasson has more from Pearson, where some took their first flight since the pandemic began.
So we're expecting about 85,000 passengers to pass through the terminal today.
Seeing Pearson busy again may be one of the more tangible signs that things are returning to normal. But it's still a far cry from the number of travelers we used to see for March break.
In 2019, so the March break prior to the pandemic, we saw 145,000 customers pass through the terminal that day.
COVID-19 is still circulating, so there's still a mask mandate and other rules.
While the provincial regulations are changing for masking, that airports are federally regulated. So we have to follow the rules of the federal government.
Which include wearing your mask at all times in the airport and throughout your flight. Anyone over the age of 12 years and 4 months must be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 to board a flight, domestic or international. And while PCR tests are no longer required, travelers must produce a negative rapid antigen test no more than 24 hours before their flight. So make sure you get all your documents in order and
be prepared to pack your patients.
We did get here early. We didn't really calculate that we wouldn't be able to check in.
The Greater Toronto Airports Authority says you can expect delays as people navigate through screening and document checks.
A little weird, a little nervous with the new rules. I'm not really used to it.
Especially if you haven't traveled traveled in a while.
Not at all.
That's
No.
the first trip after since the pandemic started.
And be prepared for different rules at your destination, with masks, for example.
I know that they're not mandated in Florida, so we do still plan to mask up and everything in Florida.
Some feel it's time to lift the mandates for vaccinated travelers.
So I feel there is no point, especially especially the third dose if we took it. So I think they have to release all these restrictions.
Others are happy to oblige because they're
happy to be on a plane again.
Now get used to those travel rules. Even though Ontario is lifting its COVID-19 mandates and restrictions on March 21st, they're still going to be in place at Canada's airports. So you'll still need your mask and proof of vaccination to travel going forward. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Pearson.
Russia escalated its attack on Ukraine today, hitting targets in the western part of the country from the air. Russian ground forces again moved to encircle the capital Kyiv and intensify pressure on Mariupol and other besieged cities. 300 kilometers to the northwest, Russian forces conducted 3 airstrikes on the central city of Dnipro. Emergency services said that 1 person was killed and that the strikes were close to an apartment building and a kindergarten. They also released footage showing crews extinguishing fires at what appears to be the site of a shoe factory. Now, the Lithuanian community is marking its Independence Day today, but its thoughts are with Ukraine as the country struggles against the Russian invasion. So tonight, members of the community put on a concert at Toronto's Lithuanian House, featuring members of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, with hopes of using music to unite and raise funds for the people of Ukraine. Dahlia Ashry has more.
Toronto's Lithuanian community is not celebrating its Independence Day today. Instead, it's standing in solidarity with Ukraine through tonight's fundraising concert.
It kind of hurts right now. Ukraine's independence is obviously under attack.
Lithuania understands firsthand the impact of war. It was occupied by the Soviet Union in 1940 during World War II and has its own dark history with Russia.
It very much looks like 1940. And I lost a lot of family, not directly, but indirectly. Great-grandparents, great aunts and uncles.
We know how bad it was for us to lose the freedom, and we understand how bad it is right now for Ukrainians. They're going through the same thing.
In 1990, Lithuania was able to have its first democratic election. Atis Bankis is a member of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra who helped organize tonight's concert.
It touches emotions of people from different parts of the world.
More than 2 million refugees have now fled Ukraine. Bankis, who is a Soviet refugee over 40 years ago, can relate.
I'm reliving all kinds of memories and seeing what is happening, and then I know exactly how they feel.
The orchestra's conductor is from Azerbaijan. He lived under the Soviet Union regime as well and did most of his musical studies in St. Petersburg, Russia.
More than 10 million people was victim of Stalin regime. Now the same thing we see again.
Ambassador of Lithuania to Canada also showing his support this evening.
What is happening now, it's a tragedy, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger humanitarian catastrophe. And the idea is to raise money, raise awareness, and to show our solidarity.
Donations from tonight's event will go for humanitarian aid for Ukraine through the Canada-Ukraine Foundation. Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
Celeste Decaire joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Celeste, what a difference a day makes, a messy one out there tonight.
That snowstorm that's making its way through eastern Canada is certainly going to continue through the GTA this evening. We can expect some flurries overnight. It will die down tomorrow morning, but there is still some flurries expected later in the morning tomorrow and in the evening, and some more snow calling on Sunday. But into next week, later in the week, we are going to see some double digits, which means we're much closer to spring, which is great. Okay, here's a quick look ahead. 8 o'clock tonight, we're going to see low of 0, 12. Overnight, it's going to be -2. And then into tomorrow morning, around 8 a.m., you're going to look at -6. Mix of sun and cloud there. Here's a quick look at your storm tracker tonight. There's Toronto. Looks like it'll be a little lighter overnight tonight, but certainly some flurries are in the forecast. As you see this system right here making its way through the region early Saturday morning. couple flurries there, some cloud coverage as well. And then into the evening, similar deal, couple flurries, nothing too heavy. Looking ahead, it's going to be -6 overnight tonight. Looking at your high tomorrow, it's going to be around -3. Couple flurries in the forecast as well. And then here's your weekend forecast very quickly. Saturday, Sunday, calling for snow. Monday, looks like your week is going to start off just a little wet, but a high of 8 degrees on Monday.
Thanks so much, Celeste. An Ontario teen has been sentenced to 7 years in custody following the stabbing death of 14-year-old Devin Selvey in Hamilton. The murder happened in 2019 outside his school, and as Natalie Collada tells us, there's mixed reaction to the sentence.
Words can't describe what we're all feeling right now. It's like a slap in the face.
For Devin Selvey's family, today's sentence was hard to hear.
Devin is not coming back. He is going to be missed, and right now we're pretty much, bottom line, disgusted with the system.
The judge accepted the joint submission by the Crown and defense, sentencing the 16-year-old accused to 7 years in custody. The teen, who cannot be identified under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, received the maximum sentence for a youth convicted of second-degree murder. Like Selvey, he was 14 years old in 2019 when he stabbed the teen in the back outside their Hamilton High School. Today, the judge addressed Selvey's family upon delivering the sentence, saying, "I'm aware of the utter devastation felt by his death. Nothing I do here will bring him back. However, I cannot exact vengeance." The judge credited the youth with 24 months of time served, meaning he will spend 2 more years in custody, then 3 years under supervision in the community. In a previous statement to the court, the 16-year-old said, "I can never take back what I did that day, and I will have to live with it for the rest of my life. I wish we both could go back to our families. I took that away from Devin. I'm ready to accept the consequences." But Selvey's family says it's not enough.
He would have directly looked at the family and said, "I apologize." He should not be turning around and saying, I'm doing good and I feel remorse and that I'm going to be doing this in memory of Devin. He should not even be bringing up Devin's name.
Selvey's family describe him as a kind and caring child, his mother telling the court in her victim impact statement that Devin was a beautiful soul, an amazing son. Devin will never get to live his dreams because of your actions. You've taken so much from my family and I. His sister said her brother was her best friend, adding, "You took our sunshine when the skies are gray. The world is darker without him." And for the family, no sentence can change that. Natalie Collada, CBC News, Toronto.
Today marks the 2-year anniversary of the WHO declaring COVID-19 a pandemic. For many, it's been a difficult 2 years. The latest data shows us most Canadians say their mental health is worse off. And as Christine Birak shows us, the pandemic has exposed cracks in the country's mental health care system.
Like many, Mona El Rafi's trying to stay positive.
But it's not easy. It's not easy.
She's feeling the weight of repeatedly shutting down her consignment store, juggling tight finances while caring for 3 kids.
It's kind of like a non-stop stress for 2 years.
She's not alone. A new Angus Reid Institute survey in partnership with the CBC reveals half of Canadians say their mental health has worsened over the past 2 years. Women under 55 in particular, over 60% say they're doing worse now than when the pandemic began.
24/7 crisis support Peel.
The volume of calls coming into some crisis lines in Ontario is up 30%.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And the callers are changing.
They are experiencing distress because of someone in their family or in their loved one is experiencing some level of crisis, either due to mental health or addiction reasons.
Those who once offered support now need it, but the system is at a breaking point. Recent data shows 17% of Canadians who felt they needed help with their mental health during the pandemic didn't get it. In Alberta, it's even higher.
Many people probably thought, oh, it is like going to the doctor. I'll just call someone and get some help. And then when they actually tried to do that, they realized that they couldn't afford it.
Universal healthcare doesn't cover mental health. Privately, therapy costs up to $250 per hour. Otherwise, patients are sitting on wait lists for up to 6 months.
And ultimately, what that wraps up to is the notion that we all need universal mental health care. We've treated mental health as a poor cousin.
I think it's critical that we know that there is help there.
The federal government is offering up billions of dollars to support mental health. Experts insist that money needs to reach Canadians who are struggling and fast, emphasizing this pandemic has created a crisis, but it's also an opportunity to build a better system. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. What began as a trip home to Ukraine for one Toronto woman quickly turned into an evacuation mission. Now, she has been able to get her mother and younger sister out of the country, but like many who have fled Ukraine, they're now in limbo, waiting to go home or plan for a new future in a new country. Farah Morali spoke to her about her journey.
Crowds of Ukrainian refugees walk off a ferry docked in the Romanian town of Isacha. Among them, Canadian permanent resident Anastasia Parfanova and her teenage sister.
I live in Canada, so I came back to Ukraine, to Poland first, and then to Odessa to pick up my family. It took me 1 week to tell them that it's time to go. So finally, we're here.
Parfanova lives in Toronto and works as a makeup artist. She learned of Russia's invasion as she was waiting for her plane to take off. She was given the option of going back to Toronto.
I'm 100% Ukrainian, so I can't imagine me going back to Toronto and just, staying in my warm apartment. Meanwhile, my family is still in Ukraine, all my friends, and it doesn't feel right to me.
Her plane landed in Warsaw. Then she traveled to Krakow to help refugees. She stayed with friends for about a week before taking a near-empty train to Odessa. That's where she helped her younger sister and mother get out.
I saw my dad, I saw my grandma for like 20 minutes, and then we left to Izmail, which is like 4 hours drive from Odessa, and then we went to Romania after that.
The journey out of Ukraine, long but not as chaotic as it has been in recent weeks, since many had already left. They were welcomed with chocolate and flowers from Romanians to mark International Women's Day. Parfanova has been documenting her journey on social media to show the world what she's seeing. It's a journey that's been at times emotional for someone who describes herself as strong.
Even if a tough person like me experienced something like that, we should not hide that. We should be able to, to be open about it, to show it, to make people understand that there is something happening, something huge happening.
Now safe in a small Bucharest apartment, the future is unclear. Parfanova can return to Canada, but she's awaiting more details from the government on its plan to expedite visas for refugees. More than anything, she says, her family just wants to go home.
We have a huge hope that it's going to be over. We don't even book anything longer than 4 or 5 days. Because every 4 days we have a hope that, it's going to be over soon.
A hope that fades as the Russian invasion continues. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
You're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, cloudy with flurries tonight, much like the day, currently sitting at -1 in the city. Let's go back to Celeste now with a look at your extended forecast. And Celeste, those flurries sticking around for a little bit still, but things will look a little bit different later in the morning.
So taking a look at tomorrow morning, a lot of those flurries that we saw, that we'll experience tonight will have dissipated just a bit, but we are in for some light conditions. You can see 10 o'clock on Saturday, some flurries, some coverage over Toronto there into the afternoon. Similar deal, but certainly nothing as heavy as what southern Quebec and other regions are in store for with that major system that's making its way through. But into the evening, it'll start to kind of clear out. The cloud coverage will dissipate just a little bit, but again, some light flurries for some parts of the region there into early Sunday morning. Looking like those flurries will return along with a little bit of cloud coverage there as well. Into the afternoon, similar conditions. We are in for a little bit of a snowy day, but certainly quite light into the evening as well. It's going to be quite windy tomorrow. We'll take a look at exactly what that looks like for your winds. Toronto into Saturday morning, looking like it'll be 35 kilometers an hour. Not too heavy, but as we make our way through the day into the afternoon, looking like it'll be upwards of 60 kilometers. So quite windy, paired with that snow, could make for drifting conditions. A little tough on the roads out there, so definitely plan ahead for your travel. Into the evening, it's looking like it's gonna be quite windy as well. Okay, here's a look at your 3-day. Saturday, Sunday, calling for snow. -3 on Saturday for your high, 0 on Sunday. Monday, your week is off to a little bit of a wet start, but a high of 8 degrees. Let's take a look at how the rest of the week is shaping up. I'm not hating on these conditions, these double digits. It's looking like we're getting closer to spring. Tuesday, mix of sun and cloud. Seems like those conditions are gonna hold steady throughout the rest of the week. 6 on Tuesday, 10 on Wednesday. Thursday, now 15. I can't tell you last time I saw numbers like that, but I love it. Friday, 12 degrees as well, and a mix of sun and cloud there. And your lows also not looking too bad. We are moving closer and closer to spring. As you can see, the temperatures aren't dropping down too low. All right, that's it for your weather.
Finally tonight, the Toronto Zoo now has a name for the baby giraffe born last month.
He's very curious. He's kind of a spunky little guy, likes to explore, but still a little bit shy. You know, he's still very young, but he's bonded very well with his mom, very well with his sister as well, and very kind of interested in his keepers.
The Maasai giraffe calf is called Matumaini. It means hope in Swahili. This not so little bundle of joy also has an older sister. She was kept separate from her mom during the birthing process, but she finally met her little brother when zookeepers introduced the new arrival to the herd. Fewer than 35,000 Maasai giraffes live in the wild, and the species is considered endangered. That is our show for you tonight and for the week. Thank you so much for watching. Shannon Martin has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here on Monday. Now, we will leave you with more of tonight's fundraising concert for Ukraine. Have a great weekend, everyone.